Now we're live.
Damn. There's no way we can recreate that either.
There really isn't.
That is going to be a listening podcast exclusive.
Oh,
our live folks are going to be sorely confused.
We're really up in the professionalism. maybe that guy was right.
Just.
Oh no.
Maybe he was really onto something. Maybe we really
he was right.
Damn it.
Damn
it
now the hat seems really stupid.
Oh my god.
Vito, do not cut a single damn second of this. All of this is staying in. This is going to be the coldest open of all time. Of just to give backing.
It was a vision issue. I couldn't see without my monocle.
Oh my
God. When we have like a little room beforehand that we all like chit chat and make sure everyone's set and everything like that. And Seth is just wearing his normal, clothes, nothing, nefarious about it. We do like a 30-second countdown, and all of a sudden we come in and Seth is just garbed up like he's a snake oil salesman from the 1920s or the 1820s here at this point, or the Penguin.
Yeah.
And we weren't even recording for it.
I did a magician-esque quick change.
It was remarkable.
And I blew it.
The most candid reactions from Nate and I. That's on brand is the only way we could describe that.
Oh my god.
I'm upset.
I mean, if we were thinking we were professional, I think that really put the final nail in the coffin.
He was right. He was right.
You know what? When you're right, you're right. It's the Onion article where it's like the worst person in the world makes a valid point.
He did.
But anyway,
I doffed my cap to him.
Let's really try to do a hard right into getting this thing back on the correct path. Welcome to the Bulluminati podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Bond, joined alongside me, as always, Robert Steeg, and the once dapper yet still handsome Seth Varnadore join alongside me as we discuss all things USF football tonight, as AAC Media Day happened on Thursday. It was held virtually, which is also just another slap in the face for me personally, because it seems like we're never going to get the clam bake again, which is really sad, and it's one of the best things about the conference leading up to it. But lots of news, lots of nuggets. I'll let you guys kind of steer the ship. Did anything catch your attention today that you want to kind of jump out and really discuss as we get deeper into the podcast here?
I mean,
my
not
only
much.
Is Jimmy Horn is just yoked. That's it.
Jacked, bro.
Holy shit.
He looked noticeably bigger in the spring game, but it's here kind of the official numbers there. Pretty good.
Yeah, and if you guys haven't heard, Jimmy Horn has added 12 pounds of muscle in the offseason. So not only is he really, really fast, he's also going to be really, really strong. And it looked good. Like, I mean, they sent out USF Athletics sent out a picture. I think it was Thursday morning, kind of showing him off. And I mean, it's the veins and the biceps for me is really what does it for me. I know it's a podcast, which is clearly a visual medium, but if you guys haven't seen it, we'll post it, we'll repost it and everything. But the guy looks good.
Can I be honest about this image for a second? Like Jimmy's absolutely just yoked, jacked, fantastic fit, chains looking absolutely wonderful and everything like that. Why is the blurriest fucking image?
You can load in 4K.
Okay, I didn't know if that was my eyes deceiving me or anything like that, but But it's like his face just I know the lighting isn't
Yeah, so I
perfect
sent that tweet out from the house account, and I actually saved the video. But when you click to save the picture, you can click it and it said load in 4K, and like you could just like it pops once you do that. So I think this is just like the standard kind of thing. But really not, nothing really groundbreaking from the American commissioner, Mike Oresco. I think he was more of a everything's calm. Everybody's remained calm. Everything's fine. We are in a great position, wink, wink, to succeed in the future, while also probably internally panicking. And I got to tell you, I think the biggest, I don't know how to say this, the biggest way to know you're in the have-nots is the way that Mike Oresco had to hold up his pieces of paper while he read his statement today during his opening remarks.
I noticed that too. Like, this looks terrible.
It looked like he was in a high school production of like reading presenting the news. Like it was his high school like news, like the TV production team. And I did that.
I think I heard him after he made a good point say, "Boom goes the dynamite."
So he nailed it. It was just like everything else leading up to it. But I mean, that's just kind of where it is. They threw up the 2021 schedule for USF as they were discussing who they were playing in 2022. And I think they noticed it. And that's why they didn't say who USF was playing in this. They have a strong non-conference schedule, but I'm not going to tell you who it is because I don't know off the top of my head. They got called UCF once. I don't know, man. We need to get out of this hellhole of a conference, or just close up shop.
Yeah, it was not the best especially coming from the other, conference. I thought I thought Oresco's his time was a lot more interesting than any other coaches or anything. Just how adamant he was about basically, we don't need to do P5 anymore. If you want to call it P2, then that's more realistic. But he, he's been railing against the P5 moniker for a while, but he himself said P2 a few times. And then talking about the 16-team playoff that's getting thrown out there, that seems to be, possibly being thrown out because of television. You could split up more games in the playoffs means more games to broadcast. So multiple television partners could get to broadcast games, which seems like something if the Big Ten is Fox and the SEC is ESPN, they probably want their network being able to broadcast some playoff games. So he talked about the 16-team playoff, which seemed to have some steam behind it. And his view was he said he didn't think a 10-6 would work, 10 automatic bids, which would be every conference, I believe. He didn't think a 10-6 would work, but he thought maybe an 8-8. The 12-team playoff was a 6-6, so 6 automatic qualifiers, 6 at-larges. So he's thinking maybe 16 would be an 8-8, and I thought that was kind of interesting. And that coming down the line would be, I think would obviously create a lot more access for teams across the country and could lead to some interesting stuff. But other than that, like Jeff Scott's press conference, there wasn't much to it. The players are always going to give you kind of the same thing. So overall, nothing earth shattering, but I did think the talk about playoff was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I think I gleaned more from the interviews that Derek Sharp got this week during like their pitcher days and stuff than anything else that Jeff Scott or Xavier Weaver and Antonio Grier were going to give us. If you guys haven't heard them, they're on Bulls Beat. Go check them out. Derek does a great job. It was some really good interviews. He gave me a little foreshadowing. There's more coming. And there's one with a wide receiver that Seth and I both love. That is, if he's not talented, he's going to be the best personality on the team. So I can't wait for that to drop. So be on the look. Yeah. So be on the lookout for that. Let's quickly kind of get into the preseason poll came out as well this Thursday morning. And look at Seth, man, already on it. That we didn't even really plan this one tonight, guys, and here we are.
We're teetering back towards professional.
Yeah, here we are. So Houston, I'll just say it. I'm the reason Houston was picked favorite. We decided. I had Cincinnati number 1, and then we talked it out on the podcast 2 weeks ago, and now Houston, by the skin of their teeth, is the choice to win the conference. So you're welcome, Cougar fans.
You see, that's 160 retweets. Like 130 of them are angry Cincinnati fans saying, just the disrespect from this shit conference. We won the conference last year, so that means we're going to win the conference this year. That is 100% on you. Another nail in the coffin for the Bulluminati podcast.
Here we are, man.
Just disrupting the flow of Cincinnati.
I know, man. Could you imagine losing 9 guys to the NFL? And that's the reason really why you didn't get picked first, but it's the disrespect, that for sure. And don't get me wrong. Like, I still kind of waffle. Like, I think Cincinnati's going to be fantastic in 2022. And that's how close it is. They got more first place votes, but that's just how the shit breaks down. And what's kind of surprising and maybe sad to me is that only 24 media members voted for the entire conference preseason poll. So
that was another thing that stuck out. I mean, maybe that's why they went virtual. How many people would have showed up?
Well, if it was at the clam bake, more.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Chicken for the egg.
Yeah. So, I mean, with the clam bake, you get a round of golf the day before, like the day you fly in, the day before, like all the big media stuff happens. And then you have the clam bake. And then the next morning is like the actual media day. So it's like a 2-day event. And
a round of golf?
Round of golf, man. And it's at a Newport Country Club. And it was fantastic. And I'll tell you who's very, very good at golf. Richard Johnson of Split Zone Duo and Sports Illustrated, scratch golfer.
Really?
Good. And JP Goodham from Fear the Wave. They paired up. They got paired together in 2019, and I don't know if it was like a winner of them all, but they smoked everybody.
Well, now I'm really upset.
Yeah.
I played today.
Did you really?
Played 9, yeah.
Yeah. The kids, Samantha and the kids are going out of town on Saturday, so there's a lot of golf in my future over the next week.
I was trying to recreate my own media day experience down here.
But, I mean, this is kind of where we laid it out. I think really the only differences are we picked South Florida to finish 8th, and they were picked 9th, and there's still a pretty big gap between 8 and 9, so I get it. But Temple and Navy being the 2 worst teams in the conference, and it's not really close, makes a lot of sense. Temple is just down to the studs, and then the studs haven't even been made yet. So it's gonna take a little bit for,
I think,
that guy who is now their head coach, who you couldn't pay me $100 to tell me who it is, because I couldn't tell you.
Stain
I think was my favorite part about this tweet was there. If you go to the replies, there's a Temple fan that's like, "Y'all are sleeping on Temple this year," and I was like, "Brother, let me tell you something."
Rip Van Winkle.
There is just, I mean, to lose 24 guys to the transfer portal. Yeah, you get to bring in guys, but I didn't realize a single guy from Temple's roster at all, and they historically recruit the Florida area pretty well, and so you can normally find a guy or two. I'm absolutely jinxing us, but boy, if this USF team last year ran over you guys for a program record in rushing and beat you guys by double digits when we couldn't even hold water against Tulsa, and then you got worse in the offseason and we got better, I don't know what to tell you. I really don't.
Their luck, their non-conference schedule is pretty weak, so they'll win some games. But I would be shocked if they win a conference game.
So that's gonna be really unfortunate when they go 4-8 and they go
No, they'll win 2 maybe. They have Massachusetts, so if they beat UMass, then I think they have a FCS team that they should beat.
Wagner.
So those are two they should win, but everything else they're going to be heavy underdogs, I'd imagine.
Yeah. And I mean, looking, 1 through 7, I mean, really, it's, do you have a quarterback? If the answer is yes, then you're on the top half of the conference.
Yeah.
Houston's got a quarterback. Cincinnati has Ben Bryant, who's a talented quarterback. I think he threw for 3,400 yards last year at Eastern Michigan. I think UCF is going to be fine with John Rice Plumlee. I think he's going to be the guy there. He's really, really talented. Still questions on, can he get the ball down the field? I know he's going to be a fantastic runner for them, especially with DeMarcus Bowman and Isaiah Bauer or Bowser and the third guy. Who's the third? There's a third running back
Johnny
too,
Richardson.
right? Yeah, and they've got talent. Ryan O'Keefe is a fantastic slot receiver. Their offense is going to be really good. I think their defense probably takes a step up, just like I think USF's will. And then SMU has a quarterback, Tanner Mordecai. Memphis has their true sophomore quarterback that's going to be really good still. He had a 3,000-yard season. Holden Ahlers, for all of his warts, is still he can elevate a team to the middle of the pack in this conference. Tulane, if Michael Pratt gets right, he'll be fine. And then 8, 9, 10, 11, who the hell is going to be the quarterback? And Tulsa has Davis Brin, but is he going to be good enough to elevate the team to get into the middle of the pack? Who knows? I mean, the only thing that I gleaned from any of the interviews from USF, honestly, Thursday during media day, was it really just kind of seemed like it's a 2-man competition between Gary Bohannon and Timmy McClain. Like, Trey Marsh is just kind of the third guy out there. As we get deeper into it, Coach Scott mentioned he wants the first couple of weeks to figure out who the quarterback is, and then give him the last half of fall camp to really be the guy. And geez,
click the link. Quick.
Oh, sorry.
Hot single women in your area.
That's what we want, baby. It's better than the other thing that always popped up.
Yes.
So, I mean, well,
we won't screen share that one.
No, that won't make it. But I mean, that's kind of where we're at. Lots of awards, more awards than I thought was going to happen over the last week and a half. Let's see. So we got Gary with the Davey O'Brien. We've got
that didn't happen.
Unofficially. We had Xavier Weaver with the Fred Biletnikoff Award watch list for the best wide receiver in the country. We have Antonio Grier making it for the Bronco Nagurski watch list, but not for the Butkus Award. The Bronco Nagurski Award obviously goes to the best defensive player in the country. The Dick Butkus Award goes to the best linebacker in the country. I don't know. It makes no sense. But hey, it's just a watch list, but it's pretty fun to look at. Antonio Grier was also on the watch list for the Danny Warfel Award, which is given out annually to the top community service member in the country. He does a lot. I think, Steve, you wrote up how many clubs and things he does, around the USF community. Make sure you guys go check that out at dailystampede.com. That's a plug. That was a natural plug right there. And Lou Groza, a semifinalist last year. Spencer Schrader is back on the watch list. And it was announced, and we also got like a dunking. So that was fun.
That was great.
I mean, I'll never understand. I'll never understand that one. That just doesn't make any sense. You're telling me he was bad and then became good? What?
Yeah.
I was going to reply to the guy with Desmond Ritter's stats from like his freshman year where he threw like 4 interceptions in a game. But then he went private and I couldn't. So,
Coward.
Sorry.
John, you're a coward. And then Brian Batty was announced on Thursday as the he was on the watch list for the Paul Hornung Award, which goes to the best all around player in college football. A lots of award watch lists for a team that went 2-10 in 2021, and I think that kind of lends itself to. I think this team could be a lot better. I know Smoke Davis is out for the year. His football career is over due to that neck injury, but neck. But there's still a lot of talent, and we touched on it last week and in the previous weeks. You returning, the third most returning production in the country. It's going to lend itself, hopefully, to better results. Jeff Scott alluded to the fact that it's still a very, very tough schedule. Overall, heading into fall camp, which starts next Wednesday, August 3rd, what are your expectations, Seth, going into fall camp? What are some of the position battles, interesting stories that you want to follow closely that will maybe help form your opinions as we go into the Daily Stampede group and give our season predictions as fall camp wraps up?
I think the number one thing is going to be quarterback. I think that's probably going to be everybody's answer. That's will be interesting to see how quickly they name that, how many practices they need, because when you listen to Jeff Scott talk about Bohannon, it's kind of glowing in terms of leadership and that kind of thing, that he was, I believe they said, was it Memorial Day? He was in the building watching film or something to that effect, and nobody else was there, just him. And then you see the grit rankings, the grit scores they put out every week. He's on almost everyone. Byron Brown's on almost everyone. I don't think another quarterback's been on one yet. McLean's maybe been on one, but I don't think he has. So obviously quarterback will be interesting to see how that plays out. Like you said, the way he's talking about it is it's a two-man race, but seemingly Bohannon is not. I wouldn't think he's coming here to sit, but it's going to be a competition, so we'll see. Other positions, I think defensive line, kind of who's going to be the starting unit. What's that? Is it going to be a big rotation, or are guys going to play a ton? I think that'll be interesting to hear kind of how that's working and how the transfer guys are fitting in. Other than that, I think, offensive line is going to be the same five guys as last year. What, is anything going to switch up there would be kind of what I'm watching there. But I expect that to be pretty settled early. And then running back and receiver on the offensive side of the ball, they have a ton of depth. So I'd imagine they're going to rotate guys in and out. So for that, I don't think there's much there. Linebacker, it's kind of the same thing. You have a pretty good depth. You know who your starting two guys are. And then defensive back. Now, there is some questions with kind of the medical retirement of Smoke Davis, but I think that it'll be interesting to kind of see who takes on his role. I think that's probably another thing to watch for. Does Will Jones come down and play that kind of nickel star role? Does he stay back deep and Matt Hill or somebody like that come down? So that'll be interesting to see who plays there as well.
Steeg, what about yourself? What are you looking for as we head into fall camp? August 3rd. Yeah, it's right around the corner.
It's coming up. It's the dawn of a new era or something like that. Some weird cliche that everyone says. For me, I'm very intrigued on a couple of under the radar changes that have happened. You get guys that change positions every once in a while, and I had mentioned this previously, and I know, Nate, you piggybacked off of it. But getting a guy like Daquan Stanley back onto the offensive side of the ball, I think you can really tell the direction that Travis Trickett wants to go with this offense. A lot of these guys have a good amount of speed, especially in the slot. I think Daquan Stanley had like 27 yards a catch his senior year of football for like 1,200. Like, he had a shit ton of yards. So getting a guy like that to rotate in and out with Jimmy Horn is going to be fantastic. You also have a guy like Brian Batty and Mikey Dukes, and you have a lot of playmakers that if you just put the ball in their hands in space, they're going to be able to make a big play. Utilization of doing that is what's key to me, because last year you had a lot of these guys too, where you just put the ball in their hands and make it work. But the offense didn't put up the numbers. So can you get creative getting the ball to your playmakers' hands. You got a loaded running back room. I thought Jared Mayhem should have been no doubt Dope Walker watch list with the amount of touchdowns he had last year and his consistency, at least when you get into the red zone. But, I totally understand it because he was almost non-existent outside of those red zone trips. You still get a guy like Brian Batty. You have Kawan Powell, who's going to be finally healthy from his ACL tear. You have a lot of playmakers on offense, and you got to use them properly. You can't consistently rotate these guys in and out. You got to kind of go with the hot hands every once in a while and who's clicking with the offense. And then defensively, like we mentioned, Smoke Davis going out, big loss, but you have the depth there at defensive back to make a difference and to replace him, maybe not emotionally as a spiritual leader of the team, but definitely as a physical presence. I have a name that I think can kind of fill that void, and it's going to probably bring up a little bit of PTSD for a few people, but I think Matt Hill would be a fantastic choice for that star position. I know he struggled as far as a little bit of tackling last year, but at that star position, it's a little bit different. It's more on coverage and being able to sit into the flat. And I guarantee if he sits in that flat, he's going to jump an out route. He'll get a pick six. He's got the speed for it. He's a dangerous enough athlete. And with a full year of playing defensive back under his belt again, I think they'll be fine with him if they choose to get him up into that slot position or that star position.
Yeah, we've talked about it a bunch. Like Matt Hill shouldn't have been on the field last year, except injuries forced him to literally 5 days before the season starts, and that's just how it was. He had to learn on the fly, and it's tough. I mean, it's tough to learn a position that you've just switched to, and now you're getting thrown into the fire against live bullets against good downfield passing teams for the most part in this conference, and you just kind of get exposed. And I think it was a learning experience for him. I think Bob Shoop is going to put the guys in the best spots to succeed, and I think this team is good. I think the talent lends itself to be more aggressive than they probably had been in previous seasons. So I'm excited to see how that kind of translates on the field. And, we'll have to see on September 3rd how it all shakes out as the Bulls host BYU at 4:00 on ESPNU to open the season. It'll be a fun experience. I'm not expecting them to get blown out and shut out like they have been the last 3 years. They've opened up against a Power 5 school, so to speak. But I expect them to compete. The line's 12. BYU's given up 12 points. Sean King, former USF coach, is out in Vegas, and he's on the Vision network. And he has USF just to win outright. He's high on those guys. He's talked about, the offensive line is very deep, and he recruited a lot of those guys. They have close to 50 starts together between Donovan Jennings, Meach Harris, and Brad Cecil. We'll see how the other two positions kind of shake out, and we'll go from there. I'm interested to see what the three other offensive linemen that have transferred in can kind of do, and see if they push the current starters for a role. I'm excited to see how that kind of shakes out, how that rotation looks like. But Seth, you touched on it. It's the quarterback, and the quarterback's going to stir this drink as much as anything else. And my money's on Gary to win this battle.
It certainly seems that way, right? Everything you hear, everything you see would lead you to think it's going to be Gary. But it's going to be a battle, so we'll see. Do you guys think – I want to ask you guys a question. Do you think the offensive line group is a strength of this team or just a very experienced part of the team?
Yes. No, so
they've been getting – now, I'm not trying to be
right.
be that. They've gotten better every year. But last year there were still times where Timmy, and maybe part of the reason Timmy was back there because there were games where he's running for his life. So do we think they take that next step and to kind of put all that experience and kind of go out with their best year here for those guys that are seniors, or how do you guys feel about that?
It's funny. I thought about this the other day because I remembered back to someone talking about how the offensive line didn't play well last year. At times they do struggle, but that's not a microcosm of USF itself. I think that's a microcosm of how modern defenses, especially along the defensive line, are getting much, much better. And some of the rules are not being as favorable to the offensive line play as normal. So you kind of have to scheme around, and kind of getting lucky on blitzes and everything. So I think at the end of the day, an experienced offensive line is never a bad thing. One that's been, older guys that are beefier, been around the program for a long time. Last year, if Brad Cecil or if Meach Harris, or if one of those guys were struggling, you didn't have the depth behind them. You had a guy like Dustin Hall that had to pop in there every once in a while, but really, it's more dangerous to throw a freshman or even a sophomore offensive lineman out there because generally they haven't seen the live reps against a starting senior defensive tackle or defensive end or anything like that. So I think it's like a good fine line just to really just drive home this cliche of sorts. It's good for a experienced, long-standing offensive line with a lot of snaps together. They have the cadence there together. And you know what? You brought in 3 new offensive linemen. So at the end of the day, this is going to be important. This is going to be Brad Cecil's last year. This is going to be Meach Harris's last year. If those guys start struggling, you have depth behind them now to say, okay, we need a new juice in here. We need a new guy that can get in there and do something. Because there is something to a guy that's been there for a while, has been in that cadence for a long time, and just hits their peak and that's it. There's been guys in the USF system in the past that, they're seniors. They have a lot of snaps, but they didn't play well. And you kind of have to be the coach and say, listen, yes, I know this is your last year. I got to put Mike Lofton. I've got to put, Perry, and I got to switch something up. We need to do something different. So I think that's where, at that point, that's where we'll really see, the coach stock cojones is, if one of those guys starts struggling, how quickly do you pull the trigger on them?
Yeah, and I think they'll be improved. So I think because I think you kind of would think of them being positively as having a good season because they've gotten better every year. So that's just I just looking at the offense. If the offensive line is improved and is good, then I think you feel pretty good at quarterback now. And your skill positions are great. You should have a really good offense if that group can kind of pull their weight, no pun intended.
Yeah. And, Seth, you kind of bring that up with the offensive line. And it seems so like worn out by me over the last, 2 months. They bring back a lot of guys, but is the production good? And the offensive line, I mean, it's 5 guys who have played a lot, but sometimes the production wasn't good. Sometimes Donovan Jennings is a turnstile at left tackle. How do you stop that? And maybe we'll see more two tight end sets this year, and chip in with a running back, what have you. But at some point, you just got to be able to block with your 5 guys, and I think that's been a significant problem over the last couple of years. Even though they're getting better, and it doesn't matter if Gary's the second coming of Teddy Bridgewater and Tom Brady. Like it just doesn't matter if they can't stay in the pocket for more than 2 seconds without having to bail. And that's what I worry about. I know right tackle was just a kind of a cluster last year, so we'll see how things kind of shape out.
Well, I think what could really help them too is having a quarterback that can set the protection. So kind of regardless who it is, Timmy's got a year under his belt. Gary comes in obviously with some experience. So having a guy that can help them in that way to where he can set their protection to make it easier on them That'll go a long way to helping him too in the passing game, and a guy that will get the ball out of his hands quickly. If and it seems like everything I've heard about Gary Bohan is that he's a pretty smart guy. He understands. He's maybe not going to crazy wow you all the time, but he's really solid and he plays winning football. So he's probably a guy that can do those kind of things. So that'll help them out too.
What, for both of you, what's the one position where you're not worried about? I think it's probably linebackers for all. I think, is that a consensus? That's just the one position you're like, they'll be fine. They've got the starters and the
mine's receiver. Running back, okay. Those two. I think you can go like three. Receiver, you've probably got 4 or 5 pretty good ones, and I don't think you'll put them all out on the field at the same time. But you got a good group there, and running back as well. You've got 3 or 4 guys that can carry the ball and probably be kind of starters on certain other teams in D1.
So for you, Seth, is it wide receiver 1, running back 2?
I probably running 3? Back. I'd say running back 1 or wide receivers 2. Linebackers. I'd feel pretty settled on that group. A lot of experience, and it looks like the transfers that came in are players. So I think you have to feel pretty good about that group too.
What about you, Steve?
Yeah, linebacker is probably unless something catastrophic happens, of course. I feel confident that, we're going to see a record-breaking year out of Boyle. They're going to will their way into a win. They almost did it last year a few times. So, I'm confident that, them plus, you bring in a guy like Jalen Schuler, DJ Gordon to back them up, and then you still have CJ Ross and Devon Hicks behind them as well. So, you've got a pretty solid 3 deep there. Into this, to Seth's point, on the other side, that running back room is just uber talented. 1 through 5, you have playmakers along the depth chart. Your biggest worry is how can I make sure that all these guys are happy? You have a guy like Brian Batty. He also handles kickoff duty. He gets his touchdowns and big touches that way, but he's still able to come out of the backfield. Of course, receivers are loaded as well, but receivers kind of hinge on, hey, can our good old fashioned quarterback get the ball into their hand on something that's not a out route, slants, something like that. Like I'd like to see some big boy throws to Xavier Weaver. This year I think that'll help improve his draft stock. I know that was a talking point. Was where he's at as far as draft goes, and he gave the perfect answer. He said, "I'm not worried about draft. I'm worried about winning football games." So am I. So if they can get some big boy throws to him, I think he'll be able to prove his worth as well and take his game to the next level.
To me, the receiver room has the most potential pros in it.
Mm-hmm. I will say on the flip side, and I think I'll get this before you, Nate. What's a position for you that you are worried about? What's a position group with a lot of question marks going into this year?
For me,
yeah,
I think it's defensive line. I mean, honestly, they brought in 8 guys because they struggled. They needed bodies, right? But where are they coming from, right? So who's going to take that next step? I know Rashawn Yates had. I talked to Jeff Scott. Gosh, when we went to that coaches clinic, Seth, and he was like, I really like what Rashawn Yates has been able to do since back in January, February, somewhere around there. And he's steadily improved. I think he's been one of the top guys in grit score as well, through winter workouts and spring and summer. I think he's going to take the next step, but who's going to play alongside him? They brought in a bunch of guys, Tremel Logan, was another guy on Thursday that Jeff Scott said he's added 40 pounds since he's been on campus for a year and a half, 2 years. He's about 250 pounds now. That's like a stout, rush end. And he has the the pass rush package to create havoc and get a couple of sacks. It was just he was slight. So I'm excited to see what the next step for him is. Clyde Pender, Jatorian Hansford, Nick Baggs,
Rashad
Chaney. I mean,
Scott mentioned Chaney
bodies.
and Hansford by name today when talking about the defensive line. So that was good to hear.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. Defensive line is always a question mark until
I think
right.
I think it's always hard to tell unless you got guys that are NFL players. And I don't know. And that's hard to tell as well. I think both sides of the line are always kind of hard to tell until you start playing games. Because there will be years where you don't have any NFL players on the offensive line, but it's a really good unit that is kind of gelled together, and then you got a really good offensive line. And then defensive line, yeah, like Nick said, has been kind of a weakness for going on a few years now. So you kind of want to see some production first. So to me, both sides of the line of scrimmage, and I think that's true in a lot of places, though. You're not quite sure what you have unless you have an All-American returning or a big-time recruit. I think most teams are kind of not sure where they stand on the line of scrimmage because it's so hard to evaluate those guys coming out of high school.
Yeah, and they're also the hottest commodity anytime someone goes into a portal. I saw it on a few message boards and a few tweets. People were talking about, they're going to go after one more defensive lineman, shore up the depth there. It's borderline impossible to get a defensive lineman at this point. I think they did a phenomenal job getting those guys in early, because if any of those guys stayed on a little bit later, a Florida or Florida State would have been, come calling. And I think, frankly, they got really lucky that Rashad Chaney was like, fuck Minnesota. I want to go down south where it's warm. So getting him kind of as late as they did was a blessing. But for me, at least, I'm more worried in this, almost a not worry, but can turn to like this critical thing very quickly is that tight end room right now. There's not a lot of experience, especially losing the brinkmanship there. A lot of young guys that had a lot of potential and guys that we were really looking forward to. A Gunnar Greenwald, for example, the pride and joy of the previous recruiting class, and bring in a guy like Chris Motillo from Penn, who's going to be smart as Dickens, but hasn't played against D1 athletes yet. So, and then, Holden Willis flipping back and forth between tight end and wide receiver. There's a lot going on there with like Chris Carter, who's primarily been on special teams. You need a guy to step up there. You need a guy that can really be tight end one, an effective blocker first all, because God knows that we need it with at times with this offensive line. But a threat and a safety valve at times for our quarterbacks if they need it. I think Mitchell Brinkman was a fantastic bring in to complement leaving another Mitch behind with Mitch Wilcox. But we didn't really have number two behind him. So anytime Mitch Brinkman was out there, it's just they basically put a linebacker on him and told him to shove the guy in the dirt. And so we never really got good tight end play the last couple of years.
I think some of that might have been scheme too.
Of course, yeah. I don't think there was very many, design tight end passes, but
no.
It's nice when you have a really good tight end. They kind of go invisible for a long time and under long stretches, but when you get a good tight end, it makes a huge difference for your offense and a huge difference for your quarterback. I think it's going to be Gunnar Greenwald stepping up. I'd love to see a big receive tight end here at USF again, but I'm also not going to put money on it because Trickett's offense doesn't scream, let's get our tight ends in space kind of guy. So who knows?
Yeah. I think that tight end is a distant second to the defensive line because let's be honest here, the tight end position is not going to lose you games as often as the defensive line just getting ran through.
I don't know. If we had a good receiving tight end last year, I think we might have won that last game.
You know what? I don't think that was the case. And Seth, I wanted to kind of bring this up. I saw a tweet. I can't remember who it was from, but it was basically about like the 2 high versus 1 high in the NFL, about like quarterbacks in the NFL against 2 high safeties in 2021 threw like 40 more interceptions than touchdowns, and then against 1 high safeties in the NFL, they were like plus 100 in touchdown to interception ratio. I get completely different, ball game with NFL and college, but with colleges kind of going to more, they've always been it's always been a very progressive sport. Is there anything that we can kind of glean from those kind of numbers to see maybe college football kind of going that way, or is it still going to be more of a hybrid? We're not going to be like the Bucks were like kind of set on 2 high safeties. You're not going to be this deep kind of territory, or is college just a little bit too fluid for that kind of staticness on defense?
No, I think I think probably the big contributor to that is teams playing like cover 1 and just playing man underneath with 1 high safety. So those are opportunities to win in man coverage and probably easier reads and things like that for the quarterback. You can play a lot more. You can play some pattern matching type stuff and some different zone stuff out of a 1 high look. You can do zone blitzes and things like that. But 2 high gives you opportunity to run a bunch of different coverages, a bunch of different pattern matching schemes and things like that. So I think that could be part of it. As regards to how it trickles down into college football, the thing that if teams, we used to say, and this is still a thing, it's somewhat changed because of how people play quarters, where the safeties get more involved in the run game. But I heard old coaches used to tell offensive linemen, if they're running 2 high safeties, they're spitting in your face. Basically, they don't think you can run the ball. So a lot of times when you're getting 2 high looks, you should be able to run the football. The 2 safeties are not in the run game. You should have numbers in the run game. If you're able to run the ball, you can get a safety down in the box, and now you can get that 1 high look where maybe the run game is not as effective, but you might get some more man coverage or some throws out in the flat against cover 3 and things like that. Like I said, there's some pattern matching. I know Saban's big. One of his big pattern matching things, one of his Rip and Liz is based out of a 1 high look that looks like cover 3 a little bit, but has pattern matching principles. So there is some of that, but generally when teams are in 2 high, you should be able to run the ball a little bit more. But they're trying to, obviously keep the umbrella on top of the deep shots by having those 2 high safeties. 1 high, if you're running the ball better, you get a 1 high, you might get man to man and some opportunities to make bigger throws down the field. So I think that's kind of the 2 differences, really.
I just thought it was a pretty interesting stat, to say the least. It feels like, the NFL is kind of going back to the 2. I feel like, or maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it felt like in the 90s, early 2000s, it was a lot of 2 high stuff.
The Bucks with the Tampa 2 kind of revolutionized it, because the big issue with cover 2 for so long was people just you could hit the post in between the 2 safeties, and then the Bucks started running Derek Brooks down called running down the pipe, but he would basically turn it into almost a 3 high look, because if somebody went vertical down the middle, he would just carry it, and he was also good enough that he could play the run too. I think you're getting back to that, because so many teams are so analytics driven in the NFL that they're not running the ball as much, and they won't just pound their head and run the ball. So teams will play 2 high and just say, okay, run the ball. It's not as efficient as passing the ball, so please run it. So now when you pass it, you got to force it into tougher windows. Yeah. So that's probably the biggest difference, I would guess, or the big reason that there was such a big discrepancy.
Mm-hmm. I figured I'd just kind of asking, this is what we do here on the Bulluminati podcast, man. We ask questions we may not know the answer to and try to go from there. As we kind of close down on the 50-minute mark and kind of wrap tonight up, overarching theme from the last like 2 weeks of media days has been realignment and everything. You guys have already put USF in the ACC, and they're going to become a powerhouse now. So, kudos to you both for doing that. I had no hand in that last week, so I'm glad.
Yeah, so I put them firmly in when I asked, why would the ACC want them if they already have 2 Florida teams?
Yeah,
but yes, we put them firmly in.
in. Like, I mean, above
And,
Florida
and
State,
I
above
believe Steeg
Clemson.
answered, well, here could be possible reasons. But actually, we all know his intent. He meant that it's a lock.
Oh,
I've never had a quote just get so misconstrued.
Welcome
like
to the
that.
club, brother.
I mean, like, right. And it's my big welcome to the media shit. But holy hell, did you just splice words?
I had a tweet about your boy Will Levis that hurt some people. That somebody it was just stats, and somebody told me it's the narrative. You're just pushing a narrative. I'm like, these are literally just numbers from the internet.
It's the same thing as when Parker posted like the World Series odds.
Yeah.
It was like an 18% chance for Oklahoma or something like that. By like Vegas was saying it was like 18%.
Yeah.
People were coming out of like, you're disrespecting the Sooner Nation.
It's wild. Yeah, it's wild.
I love this. Oh, but go on, Nate. Sorry, I got derailed because of
no worries. Gary asked, "What do you guys think about the new uniforms?" Let's end on a high note. Seth, you go first. I'll go a second, and then Steeg as the former equipment aficionado. We'll wrap it up. Seth, thoughts on the new unis for USF? I know a lot of players have said they're more comfortable, but visually, are they better?
Yeah, I think they're a lot better. Even the last uniform, if you took the last uniform and just changed the numbers to what the new ones are, they would look a ton better. So, like the fact that it's a brand new uniform, I think it looks really clean. Obviously, throwing back a little bit to 2007-ish, kind of that era. But, I think it looks really clean, a good way to kind of modernize that look. I like the number font. It seems to be a custom font, which is nice. I like that you have the U on instead of South Florida. That's to me, that looks kind of, just having the name of the school across the top always look kind of high schoolish to me. So I think I think it's a big upgrade. I'm really interested to see what else they have in kind of the same template, because I think you could see some really good stuff out of this. But I think these have been roundly applauded, and they look great. Kind of the more you see them, the better they look. Kind of, this doesn't quite give you the best picture of it. We'll show some. I'll pull up some other tweets from the USF football account to show more, but I thought it looked great.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's sleeker. It's simple, but simple doesn't always mean bad. I think simple, you can grow and progress from that, especially with the last version of the jersey was just absolutely trash. So, you can really only go up from there. And I think, to your point, Seth, having the iconic U in the middle of the chest plate instead of the South Florida spelled out, one, because they're like the gold crinkly iron-on like lettering, sometimes they were crooked. And it appears to me that the U is stitched on, so it's going to be a lot harder for it to be crooked, and I think that's going to be great. Hopefully the nameplates on the back would hopefully also be stitched and stitched in the right configuration, so we don't get an Antonio Grier situation again. But they just look a lot cleaner. I think the pant and jersey combinations that can be made out of this will look a lot better than any other versions. I'm excited to see what some of the alternate jerseys in this template will look like. That's just a clean ass jersey right there. Like that white on green, the white and green pants looks fantastic. I saw there was a picture, I think it was out yesterday or today, Wednesday or Thursday, I think it was the away whites, but with actually God's helmet on there, which is the white base helmet, the matte with the oversized gold U, which is phenomenal. And I love that. It couldn't have been any worse. I wish the only right because I wish they would have gone back to maybe that 2015 to 2017 range of jersey. But I get why they went back to, what made USF, and it completely makes sense. And I like the God's helmet's cousin as well.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see before Steeg jumps in. I mean, you could have a helmet in every color, basically the same exact helmet in every color, and it would just look great. And it's kind of the same thing, pants, every color, and it would all fit pretty well. So I think it's a set that you can mix and match and have some really, really sharp looking stuff.
I think the green mat, oversized U helmet would go well with this one. I think we wore those 2016 Florida State, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Steve?
Yep.
So, I mean,
after we confirmed USF to the ACC last week, we also talked about how great the combo worn against Notre Dame was, the green, white, green.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah, as long as we don't get pee pants anymore, I'm fine.
Just bring them back one time for the fun of it.
No, absolutely not.
I will say I had heard a few things leading up to this, what the uniforms look like. Obviously the uniforms got in, and then the players saw it, and then I heard a few things about what they look like. My first initial reaction was, "Oh shit, we're gonna look like Charlotte," because that's what I thought it was gonna look like. I was hearing descriptions of it. When I heard it's gonna be simplistic, there's gonna be a white jersey and there's gonna be a green jersey. I was like, I mean, it's going to be basically the same thing, but I'm glad to see that they went back with a classic look. I'm gonna beat this horse until it's blue in the face. Don't look at the fucking helmets on a uniform reveal. They chose the basic white helmet because they got those refurbished in, and they got those in sooner than the rest of them. They had 5 helmets at the media days, and that all the players just swapped them back and forth for media pictures. They had 3 of the green helmet, and then they had 2 of God's helmet. Stop worrying about the fucking helmet on a uniform reveal. Oh my God, I could not believe how many tweets were about fucking helmets. They were white helmets. They're basic. They're just so that you don't take away from the uniforms that were being unveiled to bring back to a classic look that the team so desperately needed to look like. So overall, fantastic development though. I'm glad to see the numbers on the shoulder pads. Arms.
Yeah, I was just about to say I really like that. Yeah.
I was a fan of the horns on the side of the shoulder pads there, but I also do think that there is something to the classic of just putting the number on the side. I would like to see Adidas kind of take a mix of both, kind of keeping the numbers on the top of the shoulder pads and having bullhorn there. I think overall these are fantastic uniforms. They aren't simple like how the foil print was in like the 2019, where it was just the green jersey and then the foil print and then South Florida. Those were quite literally, I mean, the high school template that I had posted. Those were basically the exact same thing. So I'm glad they put a little bit of variety, putting that stitching back on. It's a two-tone. So you're getting the actual school colors of the green, white, and the gold as well. This image is just the absolute fucking greatest image. There's just so many layers to it. Things that I can't say on this podcast, of course, but
there's a different helmet there. It's a helmet you may recognize.
Those were the 2 helmets they got refurbished and got back quicker from Schutt and Rydell. That's what they have. That's what they had in hand. You'll notice that basically everyone was wearing the chin strap on the front of the mouth instead of buckled up. It's because they have like 5 helmets and they're just all, passing along. So I also really like the set design that they're going for here. Minor equipment room thing is, there were some people that were giving USF shit for just having like a basic green screen or blue screen. But they have an entire set in the locker room, in the new locker room, to showcase everything like that. So overall, great unveiling, great video. Excellent job bringing George Selvey and Matt Grothe back. I know that was super popular with the with the fans on Facebook, who were also clamoring for Jim Levitt to come back as well. So yeah.
Yeah, overall 10 out of 10. They did a really good job kind of hyping it up on Friday and then kind of leading us to it on Monday. I think the hype video was fantastic. They did a really good job with it, and I think the photos came out really well, and the content from it has been really good. And as we near the hour mark, let's kind of wrap this up. I'm excited for fall camp. Like, once again, start one more thing, Steeg? You got one more thing for me?
Yeah, one more thing. Sorry, I wanted to slide this, actually 2 more things really, but this one's going to be
8
quicker.
more things, and then we'll keep going.
8 more things. So there's a comments about the online roster. Some people being removed from it. Some people's numbers are switching around. There's Rashawn Yates moved to like number 6, and Michael Williams a lot of changes happened, and so the online roster is still being updated. So I wouldn't put too much stock in players not being on the online roster or things are changing around. I wouldn't worry about that until next week, when August 3rd rolls around, because then the online roster is going to be completely 100% up to date, and the media members that go into that practice will also have the updated roster. So, for instance, Gabe Neely's no longer on the online roster. As far as I've been told, he's not in the transfer portal. He just probably moved numbers, and they didn't have his online profile updated enough. So, yeah, I wouldn't put too much stock into what the online roster looks like right now.
Okay, fair enough. Heard it here first. Again, August 3rd, next Wednesday. How many more sleeps is that? 6?
6-ish.
Well, you hear this on Friday, so Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, Tuesday night. Yeah, 5 more sleeps. 5 more sleeps until USF football kicks off fall camp. And then from the 5 more sleeps, August 3rd, 1 exact month until USF BYU clash at Raymond James Stadium, 4 p.m. ESPNU, as year 3 of Jeff Scott starts with USF. Until next time, this has been Nathan Bond, Robert Steeg, the dapper and handsome Seth Varnadore, signing off for another wonderful edition of the Bulluminati podcast. Thanks for listening.
Congratulations on a professional podcast, guys.
Thank you. Congrats to you.
Yeah.
It went rocky, and it was a little rocky, pun not intended, and then we really turned up the professionalism.
That's what she said, Eric.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. Go.